Hello, and welcome to a brand new episode of Johnson's Court. Today I'm super excited to be with you guys. Once again, it is week 4 of the NFL. Last week was a crazy turn of events. It was definitely the way that football games ended, not exactly how I expected them to end. But hey, here we are, and sometimes that's okay because you don't always want to predict the outcome. You do want to predict the outcome of who's going to win the game, but sometimes you don't even know that. It can come to literally down to the last second play, which 3 or 4 games did off of blocked field goals or then a team kicking the field goal and it going in. So last week was definitely wild because my record last week was 9-7, the worst week I've had so far. Beagle did pretty good though. He won 11-5, and then Nick still doing pretty good. Went 12-4. Currently, haven't added up all the records yet, but just by looking at it, I think Nick is in first place, and then I know it's a pretty tight, close race between Beagle and myself. But before we get into our picks this week, as we always do, I want to talk about 3 main points or takeaways that are going into week 4. The first one would be the Giants are going to bench Russell Wilson, who they signed this offseason, and they're going to start their draft pick, Jackson Dart, who's from Ole Miss. Now, everyone's been looking at their schedule, what is his record going to be over the next 3 or 4 games? Will he play the next 3 or 4 games? Will it be good? Will it be bad? Well, maybe, they're just going to run a 2-system, QB. Does that mean that how long will they do that for? Will they trade Russell Wilson to a different team? I don't know, but the Giants are definitely going to look different here over the next few weeks. They could either be good or they could be bad. We're going to find out. The next one is Mike Evans is going to miss multiple weeks, at least 3 or 4, with a hamstring injury that he re-agitated last week in their win over the Jets, I believe. And he's coming back from a hamstring injury last season, so he just kind of tweaked it a little bit, but he'll be okay. We'll see what happens with him, and maybe how far that he is going to be sidelined, and is it okay to keep him out a little bit longer if they're winning games and doing what they need to do, especially if they're winning their division. Then the last one is just James Conner of the Arizona Cardinals is out for the year with an ankle injury. Didn't really come out yet if it's like a broken foot or anything or whatnot, but more than likely it probably is, and so he's going to be out for the year. But those are 3 main takeaways, keys to keep in mind going into week 4 and week 5, week 6, week 7 as we continue to go along. But here we go for the favorite part of the video, as everybody is waiting to anxiously hear the picks from Nick, Beagle, and myself. So I've got Nick's picks here. I've got Beagle's as well, and I will go ahead and give mine as well. So for Thursday Night Football is the Seattle Seahawks coming in and visiting the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals played pretty good last week. They did lose to the 49ers, but they're not playing too bad. But the Seahawks also played pretty well, pretty good, and they were able to actually get the win last week. But this is a good NFC West showdown. The Seahawks have a lot clicking for them. The Cardinals, potentially could win that division as well. So this division is still up for grabs. We'll see what happens. But Nick and Beagle are going to go the Seahawks, and I'm going to have to agree with them. I know it's a battle of the birds, so only one bird can win. So I'm going with the Seahawk here. So we're all going to start off hopefully at 1-0 going into this week 4. Then we have a Sunday game, a Sunday 9:30 game, all the way in Dublin, Ireland, where it is the Vikings versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. They do have the Steelers as having this home game, but once again, as I said, when we had a overseas game 2 weeks ago, it depends on how many more fans show up. Will it be the Vikings? Will it be the Steelers? What will be the noise and crowd level going into that? But here, Nick is split with Beagle. Nick is picking the Vikings. Beagle's picking the Steelers. Oh, man. The Vikings are still going Carson Wentz. The Steelers do have a decent defense. Can Aaron Rodgers get his feet under him? How well are the Vikings going to do? I don't know. How well are the Steelers going to do? Sorry for that yawn. I'm going to go Beagle here. Beagle had a pretty good record last week as well. I'm going to go the Steelers, and I think that they can get it done on the road, even though they are the home team. Then you have your 1 o'clock slate games, which the first one to start would be the Washington Redskins versus the Atlanta Falcons. Now, the Falcons got blown out 30-0 by the Carolina Panthers last week, which nobody expected that. But just kind of crazy to think. But Nick and Beagle are both going to the Redskins. And I think I have to honestly agree with that as well. It's going to be some growing pains, with the Falcons, especially since Michael Penix Jr. is their new QB, and he's going to have good games, he's going to have bad games, and last week was just a bad week for him, a bad game, but maybe he'll bounce back. We'll see how well he does versus the Redskins. Then you got the Chargers playing the Giants. I did pick the Giants to beat the Chiefs last week. Maybe I thought the Giants could do it, but Russell played horrible. Obviously, that's why they're starting Jackson Dart. I'm going to go Chargers here. They're just the hottest team, one of the hottest teams in the league right now, one of the only teams left undefeated. I do think the Chargers will improve to 4-0. Nick thinks so, and so does Beagle. Then we have an AFC South showdown. We do have the Tennessee Titans playing the Houston Texans. The Titans are not playing well right now. Neither are the Houston Texans. I can tell you, though, Nick and Beagle both take the Texans, and I'm going to be right there with them. Honestly, this is a coin flip game for either team who wins this game. Just C.J. Stroud's not having the best year. Cam Ward is, adjusting to the NFL, but I think C.J. Stroud does turn it around, and we'll see how many games that the Texans can win this year. I think, me personally, this is your 1 o'clock game of the week. You have the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles playing the undefeated Buccaneers. Eagles are playing great. The Buccaneers are playing great. So, two more of the hottest teams in the NFL right now. Nick's going to go with the Eagles. Beagle's going to go with the Bucks here. Baker Mayfield and what he's able to do. The Bucks are playing well. But that tush push and everything the Eagles do, they're playing well. Man, this is definitely a hard one. But I definitely see the Eagles winning this game. One, because they're a really good football team, but also because of the injury to Mike Evans. I think it's going to affect the Bucks in more ways than just one. So give me the Eagles on the road. Then you got the Panthers and the Patriots. As I said, the Panthers won 30-0 last week, but I still don't believe in them. I don't think, for us, at least, no one's going to go the Panthers. They both went Patriots, and I'm honestly going to have to agree with that. As much as the Patriots suck right now, and as much as I hate them, I do think that the Patriots will get this win over the Panthers. Then you have the Saints and Bills. This one's pretty easy, pretty self-explanatory. Everybody went the Bills here. I don't even have to check to see if they went the Bills. I know they went the Bills. Then your last 1 o'clock game is the Cleveland Browns versus the Detroit Lions. The Lions are one of the teams that put up the most points in the NFL, if not the first or second. But then the Browns have a very good defense. They were able to shut down Green Bay last week and beat Green Bay. A lot of people thought Green Bay was going to roll over the Browns. But that didn't end up happening. The Browns actually made it a close game and won the game of a game-winning field goal. So let me see here. Nick is going the Lions, and so is Beagle. Honestly, I think the Lions will win this game as well. The Browns will slow them down a little bit, but I do see the Lions winning this game by at least 6 points. Wouldn't be surprised if spread was 6.5. Then you move on to 405. You got the Jacksonville Jaguars playing the 49ers. Jaguars are honestly playing, a little surprise ball this year, but we'll see how far that gets them. 49ers are still a little beat up, but Mac Jones is playing pretty well. I think he keeps that up and keeps the 49ers' hopes alive for a playoff run until Brock Purdy returns. I'm going the 49ers, and so are the other two. Then at 405, you got the Colts and the Rams, which I think this should be a Monday night game. They should flex that, honestly, personally. I know the Colts only have like 1 or 2 night games this year, or primetime games, as you would call them, but I really think this game should be flexed. Once again, sorry for the yawn. I did stay up pretty late last night. Let's see. Nick is going to go the Colts. Beagle's going to go the Rams. I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's your 4 o'clock game of the week. But I'm personally going to go the Colts here. I like what Danny Dimes is doing. I like what the Colts are doing. Their offense is rolling. The Rams are playing pretty good right now as well, but I just think the Colts have that edge. Then you've got the Bears and the Raiders. The Bears are, they beat the Cowboys last week or 2 weeks ago. And then the Raiders, I just never know how to feel about them personally. But I do think that the Bears get this win. I will pick the Bears this week. Beagle does every week, but Nick also is picking the Bears. So funny enough, Colts Bears, games back to back on there, and they won the Super Bowl a couple years ago. Well, more than a couple years ago, but too funny. Well, I mean, a lot of people might put this game as your 4 o'clock game of the week, but I won't. But it's the Ravens versus the Chiefs. This game should be a great game, be a good game. Tom Brady will be calling this game. The Ravens, they're just ultimate chokers. I'll keep saying that until they win a ring. But honestly, the Chiefs, they're in a pretty tough spot this year of how, they're playing. Can they turn around? Can they win the rest of the games here on out? How many games they lose but still make the playoffs? A lot of question marks around the Chiefs right now. But that's the funny thing is Nick and Beagle both go the Ravens here. I personally think the Chiefs are going to get this win. I know I didn't pick them last week to win, and they did. Granted, they did play the Giants. But I'm going Chiefs here to get back-to-back wins. Then you've got your Sunday night game, which is honestly a funny game because it's the Green Bay Packers playing the Dallas Cowboys. It's the return of Michael Parsons to the Cowboys. Jerry Jones said that he's not doing a tribute video or anything for Michael Parsons, which, I personally think that makes sense because he didn't win a Super Bowl, he didn't win a ring. He was a great player, but why does he need a tribute video? So I'm not really see why people are too upset. I think the most upset people are probably Cowboys fans. Sorry, Dylan. But let's see here. Nick is going to the Packers, on the road. Beagle thinks the Packers on the road, and so do I. I mean, as much as, like I said, and I've said this for a lot of years, and, if you go back and watch the tapes, I've said it. The Cowboys won every single game, every single time they play. On paper, statistically, they're usually favored 9 out of 10 times. But here, the way how hot the Packers are, Browns had a great defense. But I think the Packers turn it around. The Cowboys just have too many questions. They're just a wild card team that you don't know if they're going to make the playoffs. Will it be a wild card spot? Will it be the last spot? Will it be the 7th spot? I don't know. So personally, it's a coin flip every week with the Cowboys on what you're going to get. But I personally do think the Packers take this one on the road on Sunday night. But it will be a great game. Then we have 2 Monday night games, which honestly, I don't know why these games have not been flexed out yet. Please somebody tell me. It is at 7:15, you've got the Jets and the Dolphins. Tyrone Taylor is playing for the Jets. I'm not sure if Justin Fields will be ready enough to come back from concussion protocol. I'm assuming probably he will since they play on Monday night. But Miami Dolphins, and the Dolphins, they're just not looking good this year. They're just not. Oh. What's another yawn? That's just how, I might fall asleep by, this game on Monday after work and not even watch the second game. The second game's going to be bad, too. But to go this one at 7:15, Nick picks the Dolphins, and so does Beagle. And honestly, I'm going to have to go the Dolphins as well, just because the Jets are that bad. I know this is an AFC East, divisional showdown, so this game is probably going to be low scoring. But to end the week on Monday night at 8:15, it is the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Browning playing the Denver Broncos. Now, both of these teams have storylines. The Broncos go in the AFC West. The Broncos could also make the playoffs again this year. The Cincinnati Bengals, do they trade for Russell Wilson? Do they make any trades? Do they stick with Jay Browning? What is their direction until Joe Burrow gets back? That's honestly the real question. And even before Joe Burrow gets back, can they even sustain themselves to win enough games to make the playoffs? That's what we're really asking ourselves as Bengals fans. I will say that first and foremost. But, personally, I just don't see the Bengals winning that game. Honestly, if I was a bet man, and I am, I'm betting J.K. Dobbins or want some player to at least score 2 touchdowns versus the Bengals just because they are just not playing well. They're just, I don't know. Maybe we'll see a different Jake Browning than we have the past 2 weeks, but we'll just see what we get. But that's it, guys. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see if we can have a better week this week. Let's see if anybody can go 16-0. Or are there 16 games? There are 16 games, so that means that the bye weeks do not start until next week. So there will at least be 15 games next week, maybe 14, depending on how many teams go on their bye week. But I'm just excited. I want to bounce back. And like I said, there are some developing storylines with how the Giants, QB race is going to go. Do they trade Russell? with Mike Evans being out, how long does that affect the Buccaneers? And then, just with James Conner out for the year, it's always next man up mentality. And that's with any injury or if you get benched or what it may be. You have 52 men on a roster. I'm pretty sure it's 52. So get your stuff together. Let's have a great season, ladies and gentlemen. And I'll see you back here at week 5 on the Staircase.